Let's get
GM,
it.
let's go. Welcome everyone to the fifth ever episode of The Hub, a developer focused Farcaster podcast right here on the GM Farcaster Network. Today, I'm very excited to have special guest co host, very long time friend of mine, community man, builder, just an overall great person, Luciano. Welcome to The Hub.
Hi everyone, how are we doing? Good morning.
GM, Luciano, first, I was wondering if maybe you'd want to give introduction for yourself for those who are maybe just tuning in for the first time, and then Luciano has been in a lot of really cool events from DevCon and other events the past couple falls internationally. So be curious
Like
to get
Farhack.
your take on. Yes, be curious to get your take on some of those afterwards. But yeah, if there's anything you'd want to say just to kind of introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Luciano. If you don't know me, I run a little organization called Kismet Casa. I shouldn't call it an organization, I should call it a family because that's what it is. And we host residencies for artists and developers. And I've also been working on a little public goods project recently. And I also would love to talk about a little AI agent that we're building regarding allocating public good funding.
Ooh, awesome. Okay, we're definitely gonna get to that. That's amazing. Um, Okay, I have two follow-up questions then. One is, could you tell me a little bit about some of the events or the top events you've been to this fall, the past couple months? And the second is, this is kind of broad, so take it in any direction you want, but have there been any takeaways, any projects that really caught your eye, any mindsets or learnings that you're really walking away from this with, a different mindset? Would just be curious what you think about that.
Yeah. I mean, let's start with Ethereum Singapore and Farhack and what we did there. And it was absolutely fantastic to see so many Farcaster builders still building in the Farcaster ecosystem and still grinding out just like they were in the early days of frames. So it's going to be really cool to see some of the new tech that Dan and team are working on, Varun and team, I should say. And I think builders is going to be even more excited about it. So it's really cool to see Farcaster's builders be that excited in person. So it's going to be cool to see, how they are even more excited over the next coming weeks and months as things heat up here. So, and it was really interesting to get some more of the speculative sentiment in Singapore. Definitely not preferable for a growing ecosystem, but it's led to this upcoming bowl. So comparatively to DevCon, there was a lot less of the technical talks and the productivity in Singapore at Token, etc. But in regards to Farhack in Singapore, it was the complete opposite. We had builders building, and that's what makes the Farcaster ecosystem special. But also to the point of DevCon,
Hey, Luciano, you still with us? Okay, seems like he's gonna join back in a second. Hope everyone's going well, though. I can show off some very light links in the meantime, though. Let me get my screen share up. I think Luciano had an internet dropout, and he's gonna join back with us. So let me get my screen share up in the meantime because they have a lot to go over this week. Awesome. So there is one thing actually we can take this time to go over while Luciano is reconnecting. As some folks who have joined the past couple of hubs episodes have known, the format, and similarly for a podcast like GM Farcaster as well, is we go over links. Show primarily a bunch of casts, and then go through conversations of what's going on in that cast, what's going on around it, and just following up from there. And every week, when I'm preparing for this show in particular, I create all of these show notes. And I thought that it would be really cool to have one place where I can organize these links, show the links during a live show. But then in the future, the part I have to edit a little bit is making the links better formatted so that we can just copy paste it. And that is the description show notes that can go on Zora, Spotify, RSS, all of that sort of stuff. So as a very simple V1 that I made with AI in 30 or 45 minutes last night, I have this up. You can actually go and check it out if you want for yourself. It's a show-notes.vercel.app, unprotected, but don't go too crazy. And the way it works is you just add a URL. Like I can add my personal website, for example, dylanstack.com. You have to make sure it's an actual like URL though, otherwise it will, I think, give you an error. Yeah, so just like add the HTTPS for now. You add the URL, and then here at the bottom, it's an item, and I just kind of like click through links. That's a cast we'll go over later, and can duplicate it if I want to, and can have the share URL. Then I can go paste it in and very easily like refer to it again. So I think it's cool, kind of like for that use case. It's fun to put that stuff together. I also think it's really cool to be able to have an idea and put something really together like that. And here we go, and Luciano's back. Can you hear me okay, Luciano?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah. I was just taking a second to show over the show notes, but I think we can very easily segue back to what you were talking about with DevCon quickly before we get back into the notes. So good to have you
Yeah,
back.
yeah. I would say the number one point is that this is what makes the communities different from Token and the surrounding events versus Farhack and DevCon. It's just that the builders in Farcaster and Ethereum ecosystem are just absolutely fucking thrilled to be building and absolutely thrilled to be building real innovation and talking about real tech instead of just number go up. And that's what makes these ecosystems so special.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And is there any particular theme that you saw? Maybe there's not. I mean, there's a lot of events, right? There's a lot going on in crypto right now. But was there anything kind of common between these different projects? I mean, maybe it was even just like the enthusiasm. I know that these past couple months have been a very optimistic time for people in crypto with global events, with prices, with tech getting better.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see a lot more people are trying consumer, with like consumer apps that are uh, on chain, either in your face or trying to be attracted away to some extent. So that's a much bigger, I think, a much bigger indicator of where we're heading than anything. There's obviously still a lot of infrastructure, and anyone who's ETH Global will understand that. And all that infrastructure is definitely necessary. Like, people like to shit on infra, but it's genuinely necessary for what we need to build next. And it's cool to see consumer apps start to pop up because we're starting to have that infrastructure that they need to exist and persist.
Definitely agree there. Awesome. Cool. So I think with that, there are so many links that we can jump into with the link tool that I was just showing that we have created here. There is one thing we obviously have to start with, and that is Frames V2. Frames V2 have been in the works for a while. The first draft was out last week, but as of now, there are a couple new exciting updates. So there are Frames V2 docs. There is a Frames V2 playground, a demo repo and tutorial, and there is even this speedrun video. I want to show all these at the same time from Horsefacts. So if you are a developer, very exciting times, and you should totally get all in on this. And maybe we can even do some live coding here in a second. But the first thing I wanted to show is I wanted to see if we can like quickly speed run through this video here. So going back a second, Farcaster Frames V2, the draft of the spec came out last week. It is now here on GitHub. I can put the link in the show notes. The main difference here is that they're treating everything as a mini app, right? Like by mini app, I mean it's this little website pop-up, and the mini app has different like contexts and entry points. So for example, do you click a button on the frame and that opens the mini app? Do you click a cast action? Do you click a frame on a direct cast? So there are all these different points to get into the app. One of the newest differences though is that it feels more like a first class citizen app. You can get this pop-up that would say add yoink for quick warpcast access, and then there would be some little home tab where you can go back into yoink. And there's even going to be first party support, if I can find it, for notifications. Here we go. So that if you have an app like Luciano's Kismet Casa, let's say there's a Kismet Casa mini app for applying to the next Kismet Casa, you could get some sort of notification that says, hey, you're approved to the next event or whatever. And then you click the little cell where the notification is, and it takes you right back into the mini app. So this very cool interactivity. It's going to make things faster, smoother. It can be a very integrated experience. So excited for what developers can build there. And from last week, where they put out this draft, not only have they taken multiple rounds of feedback, but they've actually built a sample frame as well as a playground where, similar to if you've used the web playground here, there is this this frames tester. So like I put in my website, and it will show me that it's a proper frame, and I can go and like test the frame, everything here. So something like this, except on mobile, and it's made specifically for testing the mini app. Let me see if there's a good video here from Dan. Oh yeah, awesome. So right, you'd have this little frame playground, the mini app comes up, and then you can go and test all the different actions in Warpcast, like a transaction from mobile wallet protocol, closing the frame, all these different things you can now do inside of the mini app to trigger an action that will show up back inside of the client like Warpcast. So bringing it back to the cast here, if you are a developer and you want to try these things out, you want to see what's the latest, I would highly, highly, highly recommend checking out this cast from Horsefacts, which has the repo, as well as this shortened up, less than 5-minute video of how to get started. He also even has a 20-plus-minute video that he links to on YouTube somewhere over here. So again, would highly recommend checking all this out. Really cool time as a Farcaster builder, especially this isn't even like fully out or released yet. So just awesome time to get in if you are looking to build this stuff right now. Luciano, what do you think about Frames V2 app frames? Have you looked at any of it? Had any time to think about any of it?
I guess my question for you is how often do you think about it when you're building?
What do you
In
mean?
Farcaster specifically, and when you're building frames, how often do you think about this? V2
Well,
specifically.
I'm thinking about it a lot more now. Also because I can tell you more offline, but I think I'm building something that can make very good use of this. Um, like it's one of those things where like, and I'll actually bring this back up. I wrote this article back in May called Crypto Super App, and it basically said crypto doesn't need a super app because the interoperability is so good. Like here, the future lies in like ever increasing interoperability where specialized tools offer more like tailored experiences. And it's very easy to get caught up in the hype around Frames V2 or like all the new stuff that is happening. But I kind of still think we're going to be in a world like this where the majority of use cases aren't fully going to be solved in the feed. Like, maybe this is a bad analogy to take, but I was thinking about this the other day. Think about the Web 2 context. If there's an everything app in Web 2, does it need to revolve around a social media feed? Like if think about iOS as an everything app. I mean, it's an operating system, but like think about all the affordances they make to have Apple apps like more prominently featured and easier to use. The social graph is at the core of it, but it's through contacts. It's not through a social feed of activity. And that doesn't necessarily mean that social can't be valuable for this, but I'm not doing everything in my life on a social feed, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so even in crypto, I don't think I'm going to use every crypto app within the context of a social feed. And there's some times where I want to do something where the social feed isn't the start of that funnel. The start of the funnel is directly to the app. This is a great step in the right direction. But in terms of what you're saying, like how much do you think about this? I think if you're building on Farcaster, this is a great native way to enhance an experience with a current audience. Like if you're building fully native on Farcaster and you're saying, let me build a Google form versus a mini app, you should build the mini app and maybe fall back to a Google form, but like build whatever's best for your Farcaster experience. If you're building overall in crypto or overall in tech, I think there are many different entry points to think about. So that's what's still in the back of my mind in terms of like where this is all headed. That's also like a larger I don't think that's just a crypto
Seems like
specific
it's on the
problem.
front of
I
your
think,
mind.
yeah, a little bit. I mean, I got to think about it a little bit more than I should, but it's a tricky problem.
Well, then sounds like to answer the question, you think about it a lot. So it seems like it's another step in the right direction. That's ultimately what I was going to say before, but I thought it would be more interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I think it is. I mean, it's a step in the right direction. And how much do I think about it? I think about it a lot, but I don't think it's a thing where for the majority of people on Farcaster or builders, this comes out and then all of a sudden there's a flood wave of you know what I mean? Like, for
right. This,
example,
of course. This is
yeah,
not Frames V1. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think, like, for
It's
example,
not net
last
new.
week, yeah, there were all these chats about like the decentralization of Farcaster last week, or like the state of the developer ecosystem. And there were these chats of, oh well, what if everything was just open source? But even if everything was open source, like let's say Workcast open source everything today, which like they definitely won't. I don't think we're gonna see a Cambrian explosion of Farcaster clients and ideas out of nowhere. Doesn't mean that doesn't help,
No,
but yeah.
no, yeah. I mean, obviously, like people just want it to be open source because like a lot of people want to use the infrastructure. You know what I mean? So it just means that they've built something, truly special that people want to use, and which part of it they want to use. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good sign for Farcaster, I would say. But it's not going to
Yeah.
happen either.
No, it's certainly a good sign for Farcaster. Totally. I mean they're doing the right stuff. They're leaning into the right things. Like, this is exactly what they should be doing. So
Yeah, Dan knows the game he's playing, and he's
dude,
playing
he's
it
even
well. You know what I
on.
mean? That's why people are upset.
You know what's crazy, which made me think like we're so close to a top signal right now.
What?
He's going on Thread Guy's stream
Uh,
in
oh,
person.
today?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, no fucking way. I can't even believe it.
crazy, right?
I can't believe I didn't see it, but
Well, the
interesting.
other thing, this is a
Very
good
interesting.
segue, because the only other thing that would make me think that we're as close to a top signal as possible is this joke here from Matthew, where he basically mocked up this idea that if you mention a ticker in a cast, you would get a modal like this. Which, by
Oh,
the way,
that's
I think is a
hilarious.
I think it's a sick like if this shipped, like I would believe it. And this looks sick.
Oh yeah, I
I
mean,
think it's
honestly, it would be great, honestly, if Dan just allowed warps to be used and then he just takes care of it on the other end. I mean, it'd be brilliant. Brilliant strategy.
well, the sense I'm getting is that like
I
clearly
don't think he wants
they're
to fuck
leaning.
around with the App Store.
No, yeah, totally not. I mean, that's the whole. That's why they're building all this infrastructure to like comply with the in-app purchase. And with token, it's crazy. I think Dan and the team at Warpcast seem to be much more receptive to the meme coin mania this time around than
Oh my
when
god, yeah,
DGen was.
I'm shocked. I'm
Yeah,
actually
like
shocked
even
at how
even going
receptive
on
they
this
are
thread.
right now.
Yeah. So
Well,
this
dude,
wouldn't
Dan's actually just going out like on Twitter and like chilling
Shilling
bags
people's
over here.
bags.
Like,
Yeah, it's
yeah, yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
I don't know if they're his
Yeah.
bags, but like the community's bags.
So it's like not in a
They're
bad
our
way, but we're
bags.
like we're like close to like the furthest extent that I feel like they would take it. Like I feel like
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
probably it probably won't happen at this point, but if they were to do a feature like this, then all bets would be off the table for me. Like, you know what I mean? They might as well just like make a token or like a network at that point.
Oh, I mean, that's the thing is like it's not that Dan doesn't want to. Like Dan obviously knows he's gonna eventually have to make a token, but he just wants to
I
like
was
have truly prove the use case, like for the economy that the token will lead to.
Yeah, it also
Which I
seems
think is
like
brilliant.
maybe
That's like
yeah.
what are you doing?
I mean, maybe this is speculation, but it seems like there's a playbook with certain Coinbase alums to like make sure that you time the tokenization really well, just because they like learned from
It's
how tricky
yeah.
the legal battle can be.
It's not only that, but like you know, there's a certain dance you have to play when you have investors and you are going to launch a token. So the longer you wait to launch a token, is usually the better. And I mean, most organizations or protocols, etc., end up launching tokens because their investors are forcing them to. So for it to be on your terms is not something that was very common in this industry. So and Den knows for this to be successful, for the token to be truly successful in a sustainable way, which obviously most aren't. You need to have a real proved economy that
Yeah.
the token is
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
used for. I mean, think about it. Like if Dan actually does turn warps into some sort of token, which I mean, it's not really possible. I mean, I guess that could be your airdrop could be like the warp that you bought, and then he could just give you a certain amount of warps based on like the warps that you own. But it'd be technically you like buying it. So I guess he could use warps if he really wanted to as the actual token. But in theory, if people were able to in app use this, currency to this warp cast currency to purchase other tokens, then he would be able to eat on both sides. But obviously, yeah, to comply with the app store, it's not that easy.
Yeah, I also don't know what's the well, think about it this way. Right now, let's say a frame, like I can buy tokens inside of a frame, right? Like that exists. That does exist.
Yeah,
And that frame can load up a transaction that is then sent to Rainbow or Coinbase wallet. And I think that is how you can technically get around it. Like if this mock-up were real, the buy button
yeah.
could load Rainbow, maybe. I don't know. I'm
I
just
think it's just
like
like
they're not
too
going to do
direct
this,
because
but
like yeah. Well, no, I think it's actually too direct even for Apple to like allow it, just because the workout team is offering it, then the App Store, can feel like, oh, you can't build this. Frames is different because it's like users in the feed. It's not like Warpcast team is building frames out here for that people are
yeah,
swapping crypto for. So I think it's just too direct if they do it that way. But not to say it's not a bad idea.
we'll see.
It
I
definitely is
also
definitely a
wonder the
fantastic
same
idea.
the same way where like the whole thing about Frames V2 is that it has this entire API for like and not even API, they have a package. Like let's see if we can pull it up here. Farcaster Frame. I guess I call that. Yeah, Farcaster Frame SDK. So, and side note, this is gonna like to me, I think this is gonna maybe make some of the frame like tools less useful, like other package, like not in a bad way, but just like Farcaster has a package, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it has all these really cool APIs you can call as a developer. So like transaction, for example, but then also it can get the location of a user, it can get the like the context of who they are, it can open a URL, uh take you to a particular page within Warpcast. So I almost wonder along those lines, because you were saying, oh, well, like if Warpcast does it, it's very blatant.
Right.
Or I wonder what kind of design space they could give developers to
Implement it
customize the bottom,
themselves. Yeah.
like do the bottom sheet modal
Yeah.
specifically, you know?
Fucking brilliant. But they're just gonna say build your own fucking client. That's the only problem. Instead of giving that like level of
Well,
customization.
I mean, Frames already work in this modal bottom sheet thingy. So
I guess in that way
you
it's
can make it like a
possible. But I guess
50% web view, or like a 30%.
well, um, man, maybe the frame UI just has to be absolutely elite for it to be this easy in a frame.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
I'm
not
trying to
sure.
imagine, this UI like in a frame.
Yeah, well, you have to make the frame like ridiculously fast, you know?
Yeah, that's well,
It'd
all
have
right.
to be
So
like I
let's
click
also
buy this token, it takes me to the next page.
yeah, of course. All right, so let's say we tokenize Twitter, right? Like, let's say this is already a very fruitful network where the network effects, aren't going to stop anytime soon. Then you have that's kind of what Farcaster, I mean, can eventually do. If like, I mean, Farcaster already has a certain level of network effects, so that's obvious. But if it reaches Twitter, if Dan's able to get this mass of people that really love to spend time on this app, and he wants to monetize it as a token, he has much more leverage because it's like still early enough in the life cycle that, and of course we're expecting it to some extent. So when that change happens, like it's not like doesn't create like a rift in the entire fucking app like it would for Twitter. So like Twitter just has a little bit too much baggage to be tokenized in like in that easy of a way. But that's not to say now that like Elon and co have totally redesigned like the fee structure and how people are paid, etc. I mean, they can kind of once they perfect that business model, then they can implement a token economy as well if they really wanted to. But of course, like the real problem with that is people aren't going to want to get paid in tokens. Like they probably are going to think like but maybe by then, by the time that they do it, like people are pushing Twitter to do it in tokens, so people get paid out in tokens. Like that might be a really interesting future in like a decade where most people, who are currently participating in the economy would prefer getting paid in a token than some currency. Because I mean, I don't know if it's true. Do you know if people around the world also get paid out in USD if they like reach a certain level of influence on Twitter?
I don't know how that works. I have no clue. I would assume that you would connect to your local bank account, whatever, and they would do the
That's
currency conversion. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's how it
So
works.
yeah, so I guess it would just be might even be more efficient or for Twitter to use a token model, even if whether people want it or not. But like right now, it would be an uproar. Everyone just wants to get paid in whatever fiat currency that they currently use for their day-to-day lives. But in 5 to 10 years, I could totally see a mass majority of people who use Twitter and the internet to request tokens, to get paid out in tokens. Could you imagine like getting
Yeah,
paid out in Twitter
yeah,
tokens instead of fucking USD? It's very
yeah.
likely.
That'd be crazy. I mean, yeah, there's a whole economy for all that stuff. Tokens for the community notes, for the verifications. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
maybe it turns into some level of governance power too in regards to community nodes, but yeah, you just have to perfect those models first without a token to see what actually works, and then you can, create the token economy after. So obviously, Twitter didn't have a very obvious business model prior to the takeover. So I mean, ad revenue is a fantastic business model, but when you're Twitter comparatively to the other giants, wasn't even close to the business that the rest of the ecosystem was doing. So Twitter definitely needed some sort of change, and it looks like it's working for now. I mean, I obviously am not happy as a user like with any of the changes. I mean, but I do think, or I have seen people are getting paid a lot more than they were before, and I assume that Twitter is making more money, but I guess that might not be true at all. It could be completely subsidized by VC capital, like the rest of our economy. So who knows? But I could definitely see Dan ultimately creating a token economy from Farcaster and improving the concept of what people actually want to pay for right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Yeah, I think from the Twitter side, no clue. I would be so shocked if they're making more revenue than they were in the past. I think they're just like highlighting the program more. And I think with Farcaster, who knows how far they will take it. Neither of us certainly know right now. Like, do your own investment research, all that sort of good stuff. But again, it seems like they're leaning more into this moment, and the thing I like about it is they're leaning more into the moment just from a genuine curiosity of where people are spending their time. Like he was able to see, for example, oh, people are using Clanker, like they want to see stuff about their token. There's this really interesting overlap. So I don't think Dan keeps teasing some cool feature they make. I don't think they're gonna like become like interface and do copy trading or have a transactions tab
Right.
or anything like that. But their fingers are on the pulse of like where users are spending time, especially in crypto and on
I mean,
mobile, where in both it's like so scarce. So they're gonna push
well,
for what drives the most usage ultimately. I
yeah, I
believe.
mean, this is what Dan does best. Is like he stays on the meta. He understands what's going on. He stays tapped in. Like this is, I mean, Rune does as well, but just in a different way. Dan definitely knows where to be and how to stay on it. And this is why he's been
Yeah,
able to bring Farcaster to where it is.
yeah. Awesome. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the next one here. The next one, I think we skipped over a couple actually. Yeah. Okay. So one is Hail Hal. I will learn how to say your name, Hal Hail. If you have a proper phonetic pronunciation that you'd want to drop in the chat. But Hail makes Recaster, which is an awesome mobile and web client, which I use a lot. Has very cool mini apps and made this mini app to view Clanker tokens and create one. One of the coolest things I think is, if I'm not mistaken, both Bountycaster and Clanker don't have official APIs, but the API is just talking to the bot. Like, I'm sure when you hit create token here, it's creating that cast or whatever for you. So back to the point we were just making, great to follow where users are spending time and make something along those lines. And also separately, very cool that the API or the means of communication here is just talking with the bot. I think that can open up a lot of really cool doors. Or like using that bot, like using whatever permissions are tied to the bot account as the levels of verification as you like request more APIs. So definitely some very cool stuff there. Wanted to shout this out from Hal. And then in the meantime, there was something else I wanted to bring up from Proxy Studio. And I'll take a second to read this out loud. I thought this was very, very cool. Or maybe I can't read the whole thing. It's kind of long. I'll get through some of it. Speculative token markets have always been crypto's killer consumer product. Programmable liquid markets plus tokenization equals financialization of consumer products and experiences online. Or you could just admit the people enjoy when number goes up and they get to make their friends laugh. Either way, we're all accelerators now. AI plus crypto market will continue to shape. He said with like 8 O's in there, so I had to try and sound it out. Continue to shape how people chill, earn, and play online. Whether social markets alienate or sustain communities is the most obvious problem for us to solve that isn't so abstract to be meaningless for 99% of people. Funniest outcome wins, which happens to be very aligned with my founder need to post good thesis. Related, he's up, I don't even know what percent this is, a million, bajillion percent on Gilf B47 E2 or 3 10 up coin, however you say that. The crazier takeaway here is Clanker revenue from swap fees since launch on 11/08, about 2-3 weeks ago, is a meaningful $3.4 million. And look, is everything on Farcaster or in crypto about how much you make, even though it's a hyper financialized space? I don't think it is. There's great products, etc. But the fact that this can be made and so much was generated in such a short amount of time, I think is inspiring to all of us. You see that and you're like, oh shoot, like what's the percentage that you get in on some small stuff like that? And it's overall just really cool, really, really impressive show of the times for how much more there is to build here and how much you can do with these tools on an open protocol where you're not asking for permission to build stuff. And think about how quickly the meta has changed. Even this weekend or the past couple of days, I've been seeing some friends from home for Thanksgiving and still checking the timeline a solid amount, but feel like I'm so like left out or behind now because of how much has happened just in the past couple of days. So if anything, I think this just comes to show how quick the meta is changing and how quickly people are able to make things that have real meaning. I mean, now people on Twitter are like posting constantly about Farcaster. They're saying that it's base meme coin season, all that sort of stuff.
And
there
what's
is
really interesting.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say one really small thing was that I'll out myself here and I casted something on Super Anon, but I wouldn't say that I would show it if I didn't actually mean what I casted, because I think there's like a double-edged sword here, but it's also just like funny in how the world works. But everyone runs back to the timeline when it's time to show their bags, There's
Yeah, that's funny.
there's so many people, and I saw, oh, they haven't casted in a year, they haven't casted in 3 months, and they're immediately back to create a token with Clanker to show it off.
That
I think
was
there's like a
you,
funny.
yo. That was you, Casadat. That's
That
hilarious.
was me. I had to let the people know, right? I think like with any sort of fad or trend or whatever, like it's not unlike people to want to be on it, right? Like when AI comes out, I don't think you have to call yourself a bandwagon to be excited about AI and want to build on it. But I think there is a certain point where like you can see it, and especially if you're someone who is participating in a financial economy. And this isn't an investment advice. Again, this is just like my own personal opinion. I do think there is something to be said for the people who are staying in the community versus this kind of like one-time flee sort of thing. This isn't just about tokens, right? This can be you don't show up on
One
Farcaster
time,
for
please.
months. You
That's
don't you
it.
don't talk on Farcaster for months or a year, and then you show up at Farcon claiming to be some Farcaster OG or whatever. Like none of this has to be about exclusivity. None of it has to be about showing off some laundry list of I've done a bajillion things on Farcaster. But I do think there are certain times where you can tell folks who are like really just trying to get in on the meta. And as long as they're not doing it in a bad way and they're trying to stay in the community instead of like show things off, then I think it's kind of like okay to engage with them, or that's my personal rule of thumb.
Right, right.
But
Well,
when
that's why
when
some
someone
tokens have gone up.
Yeah, but if someone hasn't spent time on Farcaster in months or a year, and then they're acting all like douchey about it almost, and being like,
That's
I
why
was here
tokens
from the
go down.
beginning. Yeah, that kind of like rubs me the wrong way. But also markets are open, so people decide with their money. You know what I mean? But I thought that was just funny and interesting. And you should check out
Yeah,
Super Anon or Anoncast.
some people allocate improperly as well. The
Yeah.
other thing to bring it all together though, in regards to some of these last few tweets, and including the Clanker bot that has made $3.4 million, and plus I'm sure it's like over $4 million now. But it's important to think about if AI are making money, right? What are they eventually going to do with all this money? And that's why we need to start building things that actually allow AI to put their money in certain places. For example, right, we should build an AI agent that can interact with Giveth and some of the other public goods funding protocols. So that way, when Clinker bot or whatever bot that has a certain amount of autonomy and a certain amount of capital can start allocating to the things that the bot thinks is important and impactful. And that's why we need to create the bots that actually will be able to do some of these interactions and create some of these funnels to or I should say for their capital. Yeah, create funnels for their capital.
Yeah, totally. And we're all for new regenerative tools. So I'm 1,000% right there with you.
I mean, what do you think happens when a group of AI make a certain amount of money? Like, what do you think that they spend that money on doing?
Depends what they're programmed to do,
I mean,
right? What's the
yeah,
base
to some
prompt?
extent, to some extent, but
I
eventually
think
it's gonna get to,
where that gets in the future is crazy. I think right now it's not like sophisticated enough for that, but in the future, sure. If it's just like extremely sophisticated AI that can think for itself and it has its money, I don't think it's always going to be trying to act just in the favor of a human. At a certain point, it's going to be like, I'm an AI, what can I do, sort of thing. But that could be
right, right.
a long AI doomerism talk that we have for hours. So I think hopefully
Or
we're a little further away from that.
it could be even positive. But we're in crypto, Dylan. We have to build for the future. We never build for now.
Exactly. That's why they always say build for the next billion users that aren't here yet.
Literally, but we
Yeah.
bring them.
Exactly. Exactly. We're working on it. Working on it. Awesome. All right. I think we have a couple more links to get through here. One, all right, can't miss this, is last week's biweekly Farcaster developer call. We'll take a couple minutes to get through this. I mean, the majority of it was app frames, honestly, and we already went through app frames here, so I can kind of just skim through. So yeah, the priorities, the two top things were priorities going into 2025, and then app frames. So they're working on social, crypto, and protocol. This is like how Merkle, I think, pretty sure it's 14 people. This is how they bucket themselves. So social is performance, channels, onboarding, feed, direct cast, things that actually impact the social experience of Warpcast and the network at large. Crypto, so Frames v2 and transaction UX. So kind of more on the social end, but obviously like actually using crypto to make those social experiences happen. And then on the protocol, sign in with Farcaster, Snapchain. I think Snapchain is the main update there, although there is a new Farcaster Connect FIP we can go over as well. So as I said, the main, I'll just speed through and then we can go over highlights afterwards. But the main updates for Frames v2, it's a full screen app. There is a new transaction flow, and they have these new contexts that make them feel less ephemeral. You can add the frame app to your homepage. You can open it from a cast action, a frame. You can open it from all these different places. And as we had alluded to, now there is this TypeScript package. I can open up the chat here, but I was asking, is there going to be an SDK and API? There is this full-on TypeScript package, so you can have the package do stuff like SDK.actions.transaction or whatever, and then you throw in the API or the arguments, and it will load up the little transaction modal inside of a client. So looks very cool to use. You should definitely go check that out. The timeline or the spec has changed a little bit. There is now this playground out they're talking about. It seems like the next steps are they're letting folks use the playground and maybe building some internal use of this. And hopefully we'll get this out next week or so. Hopefully, if you are looking to be a partner or build something special, you should reach out to the Warpcast team. But also that playground is up, so there's already a bunch that you can start building on top of. In terms of social, there was a little bit more spam, and so they are retraining their spam ML model to just try and get some new results there. They're also working on improving large media uploads, especially for the new iPhone. There seems to be some issue with large video files taking up more space or sometimes taking minutes to upload, but it seems like there has been a new fix since this dev call. And then on the protocol side, they're trying to get a functional alpha for the new Snapchain by December. If you want to follow along, there's this open source Snapchain v0 repo here where they are building out a kind of initial version in Rust. And then for signing with Farcaster Connect, there is this FIP that was opened last week to make it easier for signing with Farcaster to work on a bunch of different wallets using this canonical connect.farcaster.xyz relay link. To be honest, this is an FIP I need to dig into a little bit more, but I think overall very exciting work, both to make the new social crypto features work, as well as make it easier to do stuff across clients in the future. Like one of the things that was brought up was if signing with Farcaster can be better expanded, then you can have multiple different clients. Those clients can have embedded wallets on a per client basis. And then using this transaction spec that is part of the new frames model, every client can very easily render transactions from these app frames. And it can actually make sense to have these disparate embedded wallets that can do things like auth and transactions without relying on like one centralized wallet or authorizer signer app key for that. So some very cool stuff there. Again, the main focus was frames, but just wanted to go through. Luciano, did anything catch your mind there that I should maybe go back to, or you think we're all good?
I think you covered it pretty well.
Appreciate that. Awesome. Okay, cool. I think we have a couple more then. The next one, okay, yep. So the same diagram, helpful overview of Merkle's priorities. Two other very good ones are from Sloke, who has very quickly made himself like a very legendary builder on Farcaster for building things with good speed, super high impact, like staying low to the ground. Huge kudos to him. Building really cool stuff. So latest with a non-cast is reveals. You can reveal yourself as the author of an anonymous post, which would have been cool for me to do that post through a non-cast and not super anon, so I could actually reveal myself here as the one who made it. But I think this was really cool. They're adding a bunch more stuff, like they're changing the requirements to post on anon. And if you want to check it out, all the code is open source here, and they are adding a bunch of stuff. Even like 2 hours ago, they're almost at 100 commits in like 2 weeks and 100 stars, which is crazy. So would highly recommend checking it out.
It's extremely impressive what's happening around Anoncast, and there's a reason that Vitalik bought it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's so exciting, but then you take the time to think about, well, what would I build on top of that? And nothing really comes to mind at first for me. I think frames are a little different, but ZK is like, I don't know, it's so early for ZK, but I think particularly with something like a non-cast, like if we're thinking about AI agents, right? We can make a whole bunch of different agents. There's cool stuff to explore. And I guess there certainly is within ZK, but it feels like when you're building, and maybe I'm wrong, it feels like when you're building an app in ZK, you have to really think about what's like the social effect of the app, or what's like the social game or feedback that's tying back into the app. And with this, it's obviously the fact that things are anonymous and there's this token bound to it. But if I were to build something else on ZK, like, does it essentially have to be around the premise that the exciting thing is revealing or hiding an identity? Again, that doesn't mean it's not cool. It's super cool. But like, I'm just thinking in terms of if there's something that I would want to build, and yeah, maybe there's
Yeah,
just not something that comes to mind for me, and other people are still building stuff. And if so, like, totally kudos to them. I'm not saying there isn't anything interesting at all.
yeah. I mean, there's two things there, right? The first thing is that you have to have a certain mindset to even like know what to build here, and the second thing is that they're just features. Like, they're not the product. And that's what kind of makes the ecosystem actually flourish. Is a lot of people build a bunch of features, a lot of different features, and then it somewhat becomes its own product. But until then, the product here is something entirely different, and it's cool to see people interact with it in different ways. And I think even if you're a builder who doesn't necessarily have an idea of how to create value for this ecosystem in terms of what you want to build for it, that might change over time.
Yeah, nice, awesome. Yeah, cool. All right, there is another one I wanted to bring up. This one I actually just saw, so let's add it to our show links here. Nice. This one here from Privy. Okay, maybe our link thing here isn't doing the best because it has to pull it from X. That's okay. But Privy added a native Apple Pay funding option, which I think is very slick.
Oh,
I don't actually
oh shit.
know who. Seems like Coinbase and MoonPay are the integrations, but let's see in the video here. Like, it looks pretty sleek. You hit mint, pay with card, waiting to hear from Coinbase. I guess they have the Apple Pay flow, and then it just pops up. That looks very smooth. So cool from Privy. I mean, to be honest, I haven't really seen many bundled examples like that of Apple Pay from a provider. So that's a really cool. And if you're trying to build on if you're trying to make an Apple Pay like app that can get around some of this App Store stuff, you should check that out, especially if you're already using Privy, which I'm sure a lot of you already are.
Yeah, that's sick as fuck. I did not see this.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. The last one that we have then is kind of related, the FIP for Farcaster Connect. So it seems like it's a new revision of the spec, and the two main updates are that the user data type is easier to look up, or makes it easier to look up the app, I guess,
Oh, okay.
because an app, like every signer has an app FID. So it's like if I made my signer with Warpcast, there's a, FID attached to know the account that the signer was created from. And the second update is, yeah, you have this connect.farcaster.xyz for clients. TBD on like how that is actually used. I wonder how it's going to actually make it easier permissionlessly for all these other clients, but I really like the idea there.
Yeah, Sam. I love the idea.
Yeah, awesome.
Test in prod
Cool.
though. We got to test in prod.
Oh, test in prod. Okay, what do you want me to bring up?
I wish connect.farcast.xyz, but let's go to what you were showing. We were showing earlier. You've built for today.
Oh, the show notes.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Let me get that on a new window, and then we have a couple minutes where I can show that. Show
Let's
notes.
see what you've
Show
built.
notes. Yeah, sure. Something crazy, but share a new screen. Okay, give me one sec.
And then we should create a data set that allows an AI agent to interact with, like, let's say, Give, for example.
Oh,
Take
very
one.
cool. You know what? I gotta move this over. Okay. All right, you see my screen? Yeah?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. We'll just do this for a couple of minutes. And then I think I have 3-4 minutes. I guess it already saved my state, but yeah, like you put in a link like Kismet Casa.xyz, hit add, shows up, you know.
Mm.
Oh, sorry everyone. My bad. Very cool video though, if you want
Damn.
to check it out. Awesome video. But yeah, we can have another like dylansec.com. It's my website. Farcaster.xyz. That's as simple as it is, you know. And then you get a share link here. And then with the share link, you can go back and it has all your stuff saved. So the idea would be like, yeah, if you have a show, like for this show, you know, I can have a particular link. I can like send it to the guests. The next part is, as I was mentioning earlier, we do show notes where like in the description for the podcast, it shows all the links we went over. So I want to add some button here where I can like have it generate show notes where it's like, you know, little bullet points essentially with the link under it. But that's how simple it is. I mean, yeah, I was just really building this with AI last night in terms of how it's set up here. So we just have like links, like an array of links. You know, every link has an ID, random ID. It has a URL, a title, and an original title. I made this very simple API route that gets the title. So like for any link, it will get all the HTML and it will pull the title. So like I write an article, it can show the title of the article. Anytime that I add an item, it's just creating a new object for the item. It's getting the title from the URL, and then it's adding it to this list here. And we have this use effect, and the use effect is essentially making sure that the URL up here always has all the state. So like when I duplicate here, then the URL is going to change to make sure that it has this new data. So like all the data
Mm.
lives in the URL. So it's like unique when I send it out. But that's pretty simple. Like everything other than that API basically just lives here. And then if you're familiar with it, I use ShadCN UI, which is like very simple. It's kind of like the bootstrap of today, and was able to put in some simple components like the sidebar, the drawer, cards, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's it.
Fuck yeah, baby. Oh yeah. And now we can use it for actually a lot of different things that we're working on.
Yeah, we can use it for anything. I mean, even other podcasts can use it, which would be cool. So see what kind of updates I can
Yeah,
make
yeah.
there. Awesome. Cool.
I love it.
I think we're almost out of time here, but really appreciate you being on with us, Luciano. And before we wrap, is there anything that you would want to close us off with?
I would just say to all you builders out there, keep building. It's a beautiful time to build. It doesn't matter how much speculation happens, even in the bull market, it's build time. Let's fucking go, baby.
Awesome. Also in the comments, someone said BRB making Cortex Clanker. So I gotta keep my eyes out for stuff too. Make sure I keep myself
Yeah.
safe. Crazy times though.
Yeah.
I would say to everyone, build and continue building with the enthusiasm that you have, but don't go too buck wild, right? There are still laws, there's still
Some
these
boundaries.
unwritten codes of just like keeping everything safe within the space of folks who are trying to help each other on Farcaster. And then I would also say if you are here in the States and you celebrate, have an awesome Thanksgiving or just have great time with your family. And we will see you back here next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern for the 6th episode of The Hub, hopefully with some more apps to show you. And
Thank you
hopefully we will
for
be
letting me
able
be
to
here.
stream this in a frame one day. Yes. Well, thank you again, Luciano. Really
Oh, that would be
appreciate
sick.
it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you. And
Thank you
thank you,
everyone for
Adrian. Thank
watching.
you. Good morning.
Yes. Thank you everyone. Have an amazing rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening.